Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we genetically engineer a plant to kill the world. Because this week we watched Extremis, The Pyramid at the End of the World, and The Lie of the Land.
Written by Steven Moffat, Peter Harness, and Toby Whithouse.
Directed by Daniel Netheim and Wayne Yip.
And aired on May 20th, May 27th, and June 3rd, 2017.
Yes, an epic three-parter just randomly in the middle of the season.
Yeah, they randomly opened the vault in the middle of the season. This thing you thought was going to be built up until the end is done here.
It's not done, though, because the whole overarching plot is not just the vault. It's the Doctor trying to reform Missy, which
probably failing.
Which wasn't really explained until, they open the vault in Extremis, but then they don't explain why the Doctor kept Missy alive until, the end of Lie of the Land, so...
Well, I mean, you can kind of imagine.
I guess.
As soon as you find out that he didn't actually kill her.
Which is also, at the end of Extremis.
Yeah, there's some weird time shenanigans in this. It's a Steven Moffat story, after all.
By time shenanigans, you just mean Extremis was just edited, so that the two storylines run kind of parallel to each other, even though they don't. They take place 50 years apart or something like that.
Yeah, there's also some other classic, Steven Moffat goodness, a religion-based villain, a villain whose power is based on knowledge and manipulation of your memories and sight.
Yeah. A villain that kills another Steven Moffat villain just in the random opening montage to Lie of the Land.
What, the
Weeping Angels?
Yeah, the Angels. That entire scene of that, the intro of that episode was just the final scene of Blink 2017 edition.
Also, the monks are OP as hell in 2017 edition.
Not as powerful as the oil.
I don't know, though, because the monks can act over a distance, whereas the oil has to, travel there.
The oil can just, time travel, shapeshift into anything. It's immortal.
The monks can, literally do anything at the snap of their fingers. They, just restore the Doctor's sight by, snapping their fingers.
You have to consent. The oil can just literally do whatever it wants. The monks can do almost anything except, take over your planet unless you consent.
I don't... I think that was just a side effect of the way they chose to invade people's planets, which is to use that memory inhibitor thing, which requires a link with someone on the planet, which can only be created out of love or something. But I'm sure if they just chose literally any other method to invade Earth, they would have succeeded instantly.
The monks should just team up with the angels and the oil and just form an all-powerful coalition. Why, you know what? Throw the ambassadors of death in there. Why not?
What if the ambassadors of death are the monks? The truth is out there. They're
all just the same species, just over different stages of evolution. Yeah. So the angels came to be when the universe first started, or they're older than anything else in the universe, but that's just their primitive form.
I mean, that's that comic that basically states that the Vord turned into the Cybermen. And that means that Terry Nation had a part in creating the Cybermen as well, if you take that comic to be canon, because Terry Nation wrote The Keys of Marinus.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see how, wetsuits worn over a long period of time would just fuse onto your skin and become part of you.
I'm not sure if that's, sarcastic or not.
So I didn't have any production info.
No, I actually did try looking it up for this, and there was nothing.
I did.
There was nothing. Except for the fact that Extremis and Pyramid at the End of the World were filmed in the same filming block, and then Lie of the Land was filmed in the same filming block as The Empress of Mars. And that was it. That was all I found.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just jump right into this.
Well, let's see what I thought of this 2 years ago. Extremis, very interesting setup for what looks like to be a very unique multi-episode story, okay? I agree.
Just kind of a generic comment there.
Pyramid at the End of the World. The ending saved it.
Huh. Yeah, I really did like that ending.
And then Lie of the Land basically epitomizes Moffat. Promising start, underwhelming end. Yeah. My opinion of these episodes has completely changed. And I want to talk about this later, but I think it's because I watched them back to back to back instead of watching them over the span of 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, that can definitely change your opinion there. You didn't really have a choice when these first came out.
Yeah,
'Cause
and
they
I
were
mean, I
new.
had a choice. I had a choice this time, but I still decided to just. I basically just watched them. I watched the first two like literally back to back, and then I waited 2 hours, and then I watched the third one.
Flashback to like when we were watching through the classic episodes, and it was like a 6-parter. And like we would text each other at like 9 p.m. the night before, and it's like, "Have you started?" And like, no.
I'm gonna do what's called a pro gamer move. Start the episode at midnight. Watch all 6 parts.
What does that have to do with pro gaming?
I don't know. It's just a meme. Guess you're not caught up on all the latest spicy memes.
No, I'm not. Like, I think we established this like a year ago. Like, I don't really keep up with like the newest memes.
Could have changed in a year, right?
I guess. All my favorite memes are from like 7 to 10 years ago. So
that's like a million years in internet time.
Yeah, remember Double Rainbow all the way across the sky?
Yes. I remember because like a year after that came out, I saw like a complete circular rainbow, and it was really wild. I was like, is this what the double rainbow guy was talking about? Is this what life is?
All along. Everyone thought he was like on drugs or something, but no. He was actually just captivated.
Anyway, yeah, let's just jump right into this because we got a lot to talk about this week because it's 3 episodes.
So this starts with like a last time on Dragon Ball Z like recap where the doctor reminds us that he's still blind.
Well, he also talks about how death... Well, there's this other monologue about film. I guess this just like species that's just like their whole shtick is that they kill people.
Yeah, they're the executioners of everything. I think they say that.
And they talk about how death is a problem, like a consistent problem, but they're here to execute people with dignity and grace.
Sure. We zoom in on a planet that looks a lot like Earth.
It might actually be Earth. We don't really know.
Is this Gallifrey? No, it's not.
Because it's post-Gallifrey's destruction, because like the Doctor was the only other Time Lord they could find. I don't know, the way this whole thing plays out, but it really makes it seem like the Doctor's the one who's about to get executed.
Yeah,
here.
and that's what this is supposed to be, is like you think the Doctor is going to be executed. And I don't remember, do you find out that it's Missy in this first scene? I think you do.
You do, because they're like, oh, we had to find another Time Lord to perform the execution. They're like, we're sorry about our choice. There aren't many left. And then Missy pops in. She's like, hello. And then the guy's like, will a prisoner please kneel? And then Missy kneels. And you're like, oh, wow, Moffat. Wow. Sleight of hand. I see how it is.
Yeah, and they have some dialogue about how, you know, after the execution, someone has to be picked to, like, watch the body for 1,000 years. So, you know, immediately you can kind of put 2 and 2 together and go like, oh, the Doctor's watching Missy in the vault.
Well, then the vault just rises up out of the lake, and you're like, oh.
There it is.
And also then immediately the Doctor's sitting outside the vault, and he's like, Missy, they can't know I'm blind. So they don't even try to hide it. They just, within the first 5 minutes of the episode, they're like, you want to know who's in the vault? It's Missy. Surprise.
So this is like if you would watch the cliffhanger, or not the cliffhanger, the preview for the entire season that they did at the beginning of the season, you would have known that this was Missy or something.
No, there's another big reveal that preview for the whole season gives away. And we'll get there in 3 weeks because it's literally in the final 2-parter. And not even in the final 2-parter, it's the big cliffhanger at the end of part 1 of that they just spoil. Can't wait to see what your reaction to it is going to be, honestly. Can't wait.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have no idea where this season could even go from here. So, seems like they just revealed their entire hand in this epic 3-parter, so.
But they didn't. In true Moffat fashion, they didn't. Or maybe in true Moffat fashion, they did.
Now that we're almost at the end of the Moffat era, I want to just remind everyone how, like, before we even started, I made the prophetic claim that consequences can be rewritten as long as you do it well, having absolutely no idea what I was in for.
Do you regret saying that?
No, I mean, it was almost as if I could somehow read the future of the show, or, almost as if Doctor Who was created based on this podcast.
Perhaps. Anyway, the Doctor gets an email to his sonic sunglasses. It's like, new email, Extremis. And then we get the title sequence. And then we go right into the Pope shows up at like the Doctor's lecture and he's like, Doctor, I need your help. There's this ancient text that no one knew what it said, but we recently hired some translators and they translated it, and then they all died in mysterious circumstances, though we think they actually all killed themselves, but they all died, and one of them is missing, and the text is named the Veritas.
Yeah, which is truth in Latin.
Yeah.
And they find out through some other ancient texts that everyone who read the Veritas in the past also killed themselves. They're like, we got to find out what this thing says. Which is like their first mistake of like, if there's this ancient text that kills anyone who reads it, might want to stay away from that and not read it.
They call the Doctor up because they're like, this basically could revolutionize our religion if it's true. Like, if it's killing people, like, what is it? What does it mean for Catholicism, Christianity? What does it mean? And the Doctor's like, I guess I'll come investigate.
Fine.
The Doctor says something like, because the Pope's like assistant, or the deacon or whatever comes in, the bishop, comes in first, and the Doctor's like, well, why didn't the Pope come himself? And Nidal's like, he's right there, standing next to him. Because remember, the Doctor's blind.
Yeah, the sonic shades allow him to see, but they don't allow him to see, like, the human form. He just gets, like, little info cards about the person.
Mm-hmm.
You can see pretty much everything else, though, and there's a lot of humor throughout this episode where, like, Nardole tries to explain what's right in front of them. He's like, oh, look, an eerie blue light about 10 feet in front of us. Weird.
Bill's like, why are you doing that? And Nardale's like, don't worry about it.
So the Doctor agrees to investigate the Veritas.
Yeah, he's like, we gotta go get Bill, though, and Bill
moved back in with her mom.
Yeah, exactly like I predicted. Well, her stepmom.
Yeah, her stepmom.
Exactly like I predicted.
Almost as if we created Doctor Who via this podcast.
Or I had already seen all of these episodes.
Bill's mom is still clueless.
Stepmom.
Stepmom, yeah.
This is actually an important distinction in this episode.
Yeah. Her stepmom is still clueless about her being lesbian. She brings her date, I guess, back to the apartment. And Bill's mom is like, you didn't bring a man back, did you?
Bill's like, literally, no.
No.
Stepmom's like, oh, okay, carry on then. Have fun. Bye. And then the Pope just shows up. Bill's like, what the hell?
I actually really like how this is done for like these two episodes, because here, like, what is her? Oh, Penny, who is Bill's date, is like totally freaked out by this, and then like when you find out that this is just like a VR world, you're like, sweet, Bill has another chance. And like the same thing happens, essentially. But yeah, the Pope and everyone shows up. They all materialized in Bill's room, which is like a huge invasion of privacy.
Yeah, well, it's the Pope. What are you gonna do? The Doctor only agrees to investigate the Veritas because the Pope shows up, because like the Pope doesn't just go riding around for any old thing. It's clearly something really important.
Was this after like the Vatican like pedophilia scandal or whatever?
I don't remember.
I think it might have been just about during the same time. But presumably the episode was written prior.
Well, meanwhile, some random, like, missionary shows up to the Doctor's execution of Missy, and the guy, like, searches through the database for precedent, and he's like, there's been, like, 67 cases of this. You can have 5 minutes for divine intervention.
Yeah, because I think actually Nardole shows up in, like, a black cloak and...
Well, you don't know it's Nardole until the Doctor walks over, and then Nardole reads this quote from River's diary that I'm keeping for my quote section, but I specifically point out because it becomes important, like, in the final 2 episodes of the story.
He reads a line from like a Fall Out Boy breakdown. That's what it sounds like.
Panic at the Disco. I'm gonna have
Darkness
high hopes for a minute, and the Doctor's like, "What the hell, no?"
No, this is like some circa 2006 like emo band. Like, well, all we are is darkness inside, and death is sort of waits us. But then Nardole unveils himself, and he's like, "Hey, it's me, Nardole."
He's like, I was sent here by River to keep an eye on you. The Doctor's like, all right, I guess.
Yeah, so this is pretty cool. I didn't think we would actually learn how Nardole was sent to watch over the Doctor, but here we are.
This is kind of weird because didn't in like Return of Dr. Mysterio, the Doctor basically straight up say he cut Nardole out of Hydroflax and rebuilt him like specifically to come with him? Like, seems like contradictory to me.
Yeah, multiple
like
writers.
Steven Moffat has already because Steven Moffat wrote both those stories.
Yeah,
Steven
but
Moffat has already
Toby, who wrote the other 2 episodes of this?
Second one was
Peter
Steven
Harness
Moffat and Peter Harness, and the third one was Toby
Toby
Whithouse.
Whithouse.
But this scene appears in the first episode, which is the one written by Steven Moffat, and Return of Dr. Mysterio was also written by Steven Moffat.
No, well, I guess he either just forgot or didn't care or just did it on purpose.
Intentionally retconning something that was like 6 months before.
Well, we get some bit of info that like maybe indicates that the Doctor did rebuild Nardole, because in episode 3, Nardole talks about how this isn't like his original hand.
Well, the Doctor even tells him in episode 2 that his lungs are human, that he got them for cheap. So, which is it, Moffat? Maybe he cut Nardole out of Hydroflax to give to River, but that doesn't make any sense because he knew River was going to die immediately right after Beryllium, so what was the point of that?
Well, there's some like epistemology.
And Nardole doesn't appear in the library, sorry.
Yeah, there's some like epistemology stuff like going on, especially at the end of this episode and in episode 3. So maybe it has something to do with that. How like you can possibly believe 2 conflicting things that don't seem to mesh together. But yeah, I didn't really pay attention to that too much at all. The Nardole thing, I did pay a lot of attention to the other thing.
Well, so they go to the Vatican. They go to like I guess the Vatican's version of the Black Archive, because it's the way all the what's the
books
word?
They don't want people
the
to read.
blaspheming texts.
It's called the Hereticum or something like that, which
Yeah.
like doesn't sound good.
But the bishop or whatever is like this was designed to confuse. The layout was designed to confuse and mislead you. And I was like, all right, guess that's cool.
So they see a strange blue light coming from the wall.
Yeah,
Like,
the doctor's
"Oh, that's
like,
weird."
what's going on with that door? And then the guy's like, there's no door there. And the doctor's like,
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there's like a portal of some sort. But it closes. And there's like, one of the monks is there.
Yeah, you sort of see an outline in the blue light, but then the blue light disappears, and you're like, wow, that was weird.
They should have
So let's
revealed
move
these
on.
monks were working with the meddling monk. They
From
kind
the
of
Time
do.
Meddler?
They kind of do like exactly what that character did, which is just mess with history for no reason except to be funny, I guess.
The monk from the Time Meddler was a lot more lighthearted about it than this. Well, not really, but like the way the episode goes about it was like, oh, you silly monk, like stop doing this, whereas this is like this sinister force.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, there's like a cage thing in the center of all of this.
Yeah, which is where the Veritas is stored,
Right.
I guess, to prevent people from reading it. But then
It doesn't work.
there's this crazed lunatic in there, and he's like,
I've read the Veritas.
I've read it. I'm sorry. I sent it. And they're like, wait, what? And he runs away. And then the gang goes into the cage, and then Nodal's like, looks like he emailed the Veritas to like
Yeah.
all the world leaders and like CERN and like a whole bunch of places.
Yeah, this guy like basically set up his home office in like this little cage because he has like a nice little laptop like set up, and like he's been eating in there.
Well, he's one of the he's the translator who went missing that
Yeah.
they mentioned at the beginning. But then they're like, oh, he's probably fine. And then you just hear a gunshot.
Well, Bill has this line of like, well, that's good, isn't it? And Doctor's like, what? And she's like, the fact that, someone read the Veritas and didn't kill themselves. And that's when you hear the gunshot.
And then they're like, oh, never mind. And the doctor's like, Bill Nidal, you go after him. Go find out if he's okay or whatever. They're like,
Yeah.
no, we don't want to. And then the doctor's like, no, you walk in front of Bill.
Yeah, the doctor knows he's dead because the sonic shades give him like the life readings of the guy. But like, I guess he's just going off of the fact that like there's no other way they would have known that he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's a pretty good guess since the Veritas kills you and they just heard a gunshot.
Well, it doesn't kill you.
Reading it makes you kill yourself.
Yeah. Well, the doctor now, he wants to read it, so he tries to steal some eyesight from the future. He's like, this will either fry my brain or steal some eyesight from the future of my life.
Kind of does both.
Yeah, a little bit. He gets his eyesight back, but only for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. He does have time to read a little bit of the Veritas, but he gets interrupted by a monk. This is the first you actually see of the monks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I at first thought, because I didn't know that the monks were going to be the villain throughout all of this, so I kind of at first thought that the Veritas was not killing people, but like possibly turning people into like zombified dudes.
Interesting.
But no, it's actually just an invading force. They sort of chase the doctor throughout the library. The doctor sets up shop, decides to just hunker down and read through as much of the Veritas as he can because he takes the guy's laptop. But unfortunately, his eyesight starts disappearing.
He's like, no, not now. But then cut to Bill and Nardole, and they find the portal, and they go through it. Then they come out another portal in the Pentagon, where we have the actress who I think has the worst American accent, definitely in the reboot.
Since Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yeah, since Tomb of the Cybermen. She's like, don't you know where you are? And they're like, what? And it's like, you're in the Pentagon. They're like, what? She's like, do you have security clearance?
And they're like, oh no, we'll just leave. So they go back to like the portal central area.
And they find another portal that leads them to CERN, and the guy's like, come on, we're all in the cafeteria, we're going to end it in 15 minutes, and they're like, wait, what? So they go to the cafeteria, and the guy's like, all right, we've set it all to blow, get your lost orders in now, and they've got like all this alcohol on the table, like, get it in now.
Bill and Nardole look under the table, and there's like just dynamite strapped everywhere.
The most comical dynamite in all of Doctor Who, because it's just like red, bright red, just sticks.
And then the guy, the sort of leader of all of this, I guess, uses his final 5 minutes to pull off like a lame magic trick. No.
Well, I actually forgot about this, and I wanted to mention it, but when Nardole mentions that he sent out the Veritas, they get emails back from like CERN and the White House is like, God save us all. We're like, oh God, forgive me. And the doctor's like, scientists and priests, what could scare them both? And I just thought, now they go to CERN and the scientists are like, well, we're just going to end it. We'll blow ourselves up. And Bill and Nardole are like, what the hell's going on?
Well, he does this sort of number trick or game. You don't really know what's going on yet, but he can basically predict the numbers that Bill and Nardole are going to say, and they both say the same numbers, like in unison.
I guess all these CERN scientists just memorized all the numbers in the Veritas. But then again, it's like, quote, randomly generated, unquote, as you find out later, so whatever.
Yeah, so I guess the thing that's going on here is that, like, they're all under the same, quote-unquote, influence, so, like, even he can't escape, like, saying the same number as them.
Yeah, so now all of them are saying all the numbers in unison, and Bill and Nardole are like, what the hell? And then there's, like, 10 seconds left, and Nardole's like, I think we should run.
Yeah.
So they run back through the projection, and CERN blows up.
And then Nardole, like, does a doctor-level deduction of, like, how could he have possibly figured this out? Of, like, hey, Bill, guess what? We're all in VR. We're not real.
Yeah, he's like, these, like, obelisks, what do they look like? And Bill's like, projectors? And he's like, yeah, but then Bill thinks they're projecting the portals, but Nardole's like, no, they're projecting everything. He's like, what happens if I go outside the circle? And he just, like, disintegrates. And Bill's like, what?
And she's actually about to try it as well, but she chickens out and tries to go find the doctor.
Yeah, Nardole's like, oh God, I'm part of it. Oh God.
I think, just to interject real quick, I think we actually skipped, or maybe it's right now. Yeah, I guess it's right now, according to my notes, is now we kind of cut back to what's going on in the past with the doctor and Missy, and we find out that the doctor actually didn't kill Missy like he was supposed to.
Yeah, he fiddled with the wiring of the execution machine, which, by the way, we didn't explain was going to stop both of the Time Lord's hearts and then, like, destroy all their cells or whatever.
Yeah, there's a weird reference here to the Time Lords having 3 brain stems, which is a new twist.
You can't just make Time Lords cool by adding more of human body elements, Moffat.
Remember the time that Steven Moffat tried to make the TARDIS sound the brakes like malfunctioning?
Yes, and everyone was like, that's stupid. Like the handbrake. Everyone was like, that's stupid. Then Moffat like backed off on that real quick. Like the next time River Song showed up and she piloted the TARDIS, it made the noise and he like immediately retconned himself.
I thought they just never mentioned that again.
Yes, but also every time River piloted the TARDIS after that, the TARDIS still made the noise.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe she was just like talking out of talking out of her butt. But Bill finds the doctor in the White House. And the president is just sitting there like limp in a chair.
Well, he's obviously like OD'd on, something. He read the Veritas and killed himself. And, my first reaction was, hey, wait a minute. This isn't Donald Trump. What's going on
There's
here?
A reference to Donald Trump in the second episode.
Yeah, we find out why.
In fact, there's a picture of Donald Trump in the third episode.
I didn't actually notice that, but we find out why this isn't Trump, like in a minute, actually. Yeah, Bill is obviously fairly curious as to what's going on, and the doctor kind of talks her through it.
Mm-hmm. He explains that the Veritas invites anyone who reads it to come up with or write down a string of random numbers of any length and any size and as many as you want, and then turn the page. And he's like, yeah, so if you turn the page, it'll be all the same numbers. And then basically the Veritas tells you it's because you're in a computer simulation. And that's why everybody kills themselves, because they're not real.
Yeah, the example he gives of this is like, imagine Super Mario finding out he's in a game and rebelling by killing himself.
Yeah. Bill's like, but all those people died, and the doctor's like, they didn't really die because they weren't really people. He's like, I'm not even real.
But then the more interesting and not more interesting, but like the more sinister part of this entire thing is revealed now by the doctor, because he says, imagine like a demon that wants to conquer the earth, mm-hmm. but that wants to practice first and creates a simulation or potentially millions of simulations in order to like perfect that. And you're like, whoa. I mean, this is where some of the like Cartesian philosophy that's throughout all 3 of these episodes. Actually, this is where I first noticed it. Like a lot of what's going on in this episode is from like Descartes. Yeah, Descartes apostrophe S. Descartes.
Yeah, it's French. It's pronounced Descartes.
Yeah, Descartes. And then apostrophe S, so Descartes. A lot of this is like from his Discourse on Method, which is like usually thought of as the founding text of modern philosophy. But I have some stuff to say about that, but let's just finish. We're almost at the end of this episode.
Nietzsche is the only philosopher I listen to.
So one of the monks shows up, and they're like, correct, doctor.
Well,
this
Bill
is a
gets
simulation.
Vaporized.
Yeah. The monk shows up, and he's like, you got us, doctor, but you're just in a simulation. Nothing you can do about it.
I have to wonder how much value the simulation actually was to the monks, because it, like, technically fails, right? Like, all the humans just kill themselves when they find out it's a simulation. So, like, what do the monks actually gain knowledge-wise in this version of the simulation?
Well, you can imagine that this is like the, whatever it's simulation, like the million simulation. They've done this enough times to succeed in the real world, which they do.
Well, they simulate human history, but obviously in real life human history, there isn't going to be some guy who writes the Veritas is like, guess what? You're in a computer simulation. I don't know how when they wrote the Veritas, like, any of the people knew what the hell a computer simulation was. I guess they were just freaked out by the fact that the numbers were the same and were like, that's too weird for me. I'm out of this life.
Well, I don't think they maybe necessarily thought it was a computer simulation, but again, going back to like the Cartesian philosophy thing of like the evil demon theory, which is directly referenced in this episode, also sometimes translated more hilariously as the evil genius theory of like Descartes is wondering, in the book, like, well, he's trying to be a true skeptic and he's trying to doubt everything. So he's like, what if an evil demon, or again, sometimes translated as an evil genius, is like deceiving my mind and nothing I can't believe anything I see or touch or whatever because it's all the work of the evil demon and he's deceiving me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the I think therefore I am comes from, because like he's trying to be a true skeptic, he's trying to doubt everything, and the end point of that is he finds out that he can doubt everything. So no knowledge is sound. The only thing he couldn't doubt was that he was doubting. So that's where he's like, okay, I'm doubting, so I'm thinking, I think, therefore I am. That's where that comes from.
You ever hear that joke where it's like Descartes is at like a restaurant and the waiter comes up and he's like, would you like some tea? And he says, I think not. And then he disappears.
Yeah. Well, like, of course, modern philosophers throw like a little twist in this. A lot of more modern philosophy is like, no, he's wrong. He can't prove that he exists because he's thinking, somehow that already presumes that like there's a being called I. So like a lot of modern philosophers have like revised that into like thinking exists. That's all you can like assume from that. Or not assume, that's all you can like, no, because the whole point was that he was trying not to assume anything. And yeah, I mean, I would count myself among those people. Like the one thing, I'm a true skeptic. I'm more skeptical than Descartes, and Descartes was doubting everything. So the one thing that I'm like semi-okay with admitting, I guess this is getting into my own personal philosophy, but like the one thing I'm semi-okay with admitting, but not really, is that thoughts exist. That's like the only thing that I'm not skeptical about.
I mean, how would you, if thoughts don't exist, like how can you even have a basis for philosophy existing? Like,
yeah, exactly. I don't know. The reason I'm kind of skeptical about that, even though that's like paradoxical, is because like the way Descartes arrives at that is that he's using logic and reason. But like, what if logic and reason are like not sound epistemologically? So like even that is like you're using logic.
Proof by contradiction. If thoughts don't exist, then philosophy doesn't exist, and therefore, how can we say thoughts don't exist?
Yeah,
go.
Exactly. Like that's why like the root of all that is like a paradox. Is like you can doubt the method to your doubting, but then you're still doubting. But like you're using logic to, I don't know. It's confusing.
Consciousness is a paradox. Like we don't even know how to define consciousness. We claim we're the only like sapient being on this planet, but how do we know? Like, how do we know?
Yeah, no, I mean, we don't.
It's like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when the dolphins all just leave Earth and like their final message is so long and thanks for all the fish, because they were smarter than humans all along and they recognized Earth was going to get destroyed before it did. So they were like the only Earth species that survived, except for Arthur Dent.
Well, that's like another thing that philosophy kind of touches on that also kind of stemmed from this Cartesian stuff, is like the amount of senses you have like totally determine like your knowledge. And like animals obviously have different senses than humans. Like obviously these dolphins knew when the earth was going to be destroyed, but like even in real life, like animals can sense like earthquakes and tsunamis and stuff, and we don't have that sense like at all, really, as far as I know. I can't sense earthquakes. Can anyone else?
Maybe someone can.
Yeah, maybe someone can.
Like those psychics.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the doctor emails himself his entire life experience inside the simulation because, like, you guys, the simulation was too good.
Well, I really like this line. He's like, there's always one thing you can do. There's always one trick you have left up your sleeve. No matter what, you can always email.
He's like, I'm doing what everybody else does. I'm calling the doctor.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, this is a really shitty computer simulation because the doctor's like, computers are really bad with random numbers. We all generate the same numbers. I'm like, most computers nowadays use like an algorithm that's dependent on the timestamp in which you decide to generate the numbers. So it is like pseudo-random. And I was like, this computer simulation, I guess, just doesn't do that because I guess just everybody like works off the same table of randomly generated numbers. Which is like, seems like a really small oversight for such like godlike beings. But anyway... Or maybe that was the test. Maybe they were testing to see if people would notice if they all generated the same numbers.
I guess. I don't know. I mean, the quote-unquote real world they probably get into is probably just another simulation. So, there you go. That's why this one was so easy to determine.
Well, the doctor gets the email and he calls Bill and he's like, the email at the start of the episode is revealed to be this one. And then the doctor calls Bill and he's like, "Our scout, what was her name?
Penny.
Right now, because something big's coming, and I don't know if we'll be able to stop it."
Bill's like, no,
do it right now.
No, you don't think I have a chance? Or sorry, she's like, no, I don't think I have a chance. And the doctor's like, no, do it. And she's like, it's actually like midnight. Like, I don't want to,
The doctor's like, do it right now.
She's like, oh, fine. Yeah, and that's where this was at.
The doctor scares off the executioners of everyone by telling them to look him up in the fatality index, and they look him up, and it just keeps dinging upwards. I'm like, damn, we really need that guy's version of the death count.
Yeah, I know. The guy asked the doctor also if he's armed, and the doctor's like, never. It's just like flashback to all that Pertwee gunplay.
Oh God, that's a throwback.
Was Pertwee the only doctor to like brandish guns? Oh, the
No.
10th Doctor.
The 11th Doctor brandished the gun in that Weeping Angels episode because he like shoots the orb of light to like turn out the lights or whatever.
Yeah. The 10th and 11th Doctor's gun use was like a lot less, I don't know, just like a lot less sinister than the 3rd Doctor's gun use.
Well, they were more okay with the Doctor being a homicidal maniac back then.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so that's the end of the first episode.
Yeah, the second episode begins with scenes that they play it like they're scenes from the last episode, but they're actually not. They're actually like, Bill inviting out Penny and some other stuff going on.
Well, because the way they do this is they intersperse Bill telling Penny about what the doctor told her about the simulation with the actual scene from the simulation.
Yeah. So just as in the simulation, Penny arrives at Bill's house and Bill is telling her about her like alien tutor who she goes on adventures with, and Penny's just like, wow, like that's really awesome. You can only imagine that like internally she's like, oh God, I need to get out of here right now. This is insane. I need to leave.
But then Bill's like, yeah, don't worry, nothing will happen this time. And then the doors just bust open and the UN charges in and the Secretary General's like, it's me, the Secretary General, looking for Bill.
And there's a reference to Donald Trump here, and this is when I realized the most amazing, thing was done in these episodes of like, so that's why, the president in the first episode wasn't Trump, because it was just a simulation. But it's good to see that Donald, the greatest human alive right now, Trump, is safely in office in the real world.
Donald might be the first president impeached and removed from office. Trump. Donald sold the presidency out because he was bankrupt, both morally and literally.
Only 5 more years.
I hope not. Please, no.
So yeah, the UN Secretary General is there. He's like, we have a problem, Bill. Turkmenistan is under attack again.
Oh, hell yeah. Turkmenistan's back. But I was going to say, he says something like, I'm looking for the president. Bill's like, I don't even know the president. I wouldn't have even voted for the president. He's orange. And he's like, no, the president of the world. And Bill's like, wait, who's that? And he's like, it's the doctor.
Trump.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
No, so, Turkmenistan is back. I feel like Turkmenistan is just like, when they need because like a lot of Middle Eastern countries are like so politically charged these days, of like even mentioning them is like somehow political. So I feel like whenever they need a Middle Eastern country, they just pull Turkmenistan out of their back pockets. Like, we're going to
Well, we find out in this episode that Turkmenistan is like disputed between Russia, the U.S., and China.
Yeah, China.
They all got armies just poised in the region, ready to fight each other for whatever the hell is so valuable in Turkmenistan.
Yeah, so, I mean, actually, I somewhat take that back. We don't actually know where Turkmenistan is still. Presumably it's in the Middle East based on its name. But like,
its name and like geographic makeup.
It could just be in like South America or something.
It's just like where Mexico is in our world, like right on the border of the U.S.
Disputed between the U.S., Russia, and China. It's just like it's just
an island, like
border of like Nebraska and Texas.
It's just like an island in the middle of nowhere.
It's a Pacific island.
Well, there's a pyramid there, and I don't know. This scene felt a little weird to me because the guy's like, "There's only one problem with this 5,000-year-old pyramid. It wasn't there yesterday."
It's that Steven Moffat wrote it, and it has to be a villain that rewrites history.
It wasn't there yesterday.
Right. So a pyramid appeared overnight. The ancient aliens guy was right all along. No. But the three sort of armies have come together to kind of investigate this.
Well, this episode starts with another monologue from the Doctor too, after the title sequence, because the title sequence starts with "It wasn't here yesterday," and the Doctor has a monologue where he's like, "Oh yeah, death follows us all ever since we were born. You're always counting down to your death." I'm like, wait a minute, we've heard this exact same monologue before. And then we see like this lady leaves her bag for some reason in the doorway, and then this guy comes out and she's like, "No, don't close the door," and it closes on her bag and breaks her glasses, and the Doctor's like, "The countdown's begun."
Yeah, so they all get a doomsday clock like streamed to their phone. It's at 11 hours and 57 minutes.
Right. The doomsday clock was something that was invented during the Cold War to determine how close we were to nuclearly annihilating ourselves with Russia. And it's been at pretty much 3 to midnight ever since it was created. I think it moved to 2 to midnight at some point. I think they moved it back. But yeah, it's been like 3 to midnight ever since it was created, basically.
That's such a weird thing. I didn't know about this thing before this episode, but like it's such a weird like representation. I don't know. It's just strange to me.
I don't know.
Odd.
I think it's an effective way to visually represent how close we are to destroying ourselves.
You always just go with the tried and true, like pretty damn close. Pretty damn close. So Bill is mad actually now that there's going to be violence.
Yeah.
But not if the monks have anything to say about it, because I think Russia actually decides to like either bomb the pyramid or like send in jets or something like that. But the monks just like replace the jet pilots with themselves and safely like teleport the pilots to
the Russians launch a
ground.
nuke from the submarine, I guess, or a missile, and then like the US tries to bomb it.
Yeah, they just stop those attacks.
So Doc's like, guess we have to go into the pyramid. So they go in, and
the monks reveal their like supercomputer, which is like it looks like a bunch of threads sort of just hanging off the ceiling.
And they show them the future, and the Secretary General consents, because the monks reveal that they can only rule the world. They'll only save people if they consent.
Yeah, and they're like, look, a biological disaster. Well, actually, they don't reveal it's biological, but they're like, look, a disaster is coming in the near future. It's going to wipe out all life on Earth. So they show them some visions of this disaster, and you see like live trees in this vision. So like, I guess it's not all life. Maybe just like most life.
All life that's important.
Trees are like important. Trees are actually like really important to humans.
All life that's important.
I guess not all life is important to humans.
To the humans in this episode, anyway.
And then you like cut to like this botany lab or whatever, where like this dude is just like sleeping on the job, like doing a piss poor job at his job, misplaces a decimal point and creates like a bacteria that just ends life.
Well, what happens is the lady was supposed to do it, but because her reading glasses are broken, she asks the guy to do it. And he was out drinking the previous night, and he's like hungover, and that's why he's like falling asleep. But he like misreads an email, and he misplaces a decimal point. And they don't notice now, but when this happens, the clock ticks to 2 minutes to midnight.
Right. So as soon as the Secretary General sees this vision, he's like, all right, I'm in. Save us, monks. Let's do this. I was like, no, what the hell? Like, what? He's like, I have power. I can consent. I'm ready.
Then they're like, fear is not consent, and they just kill him.
Yeah. So, good on the monks, really abiding by their own rules here. This actually has to do with a lot of other sort of a Renaissance philosophy, which is like, Machiavelli. Like Machiavelli had a lot of writing on like, is it better to rule with fear or is it better to rule with love? And he decided that it was better to rule with fear.
The monks disagree.
Yeah, the monks disagree. I think someone like has a famous disagreement with that. I think it was Gandhi, because Machiavelli's whole shtick was that like it's better to rule with fear because if you love someone, you don't necessarily like respect them, but if you fear someone, there's like a better chance that you like respect them. But Gandhi, I think it was Gandhi. I'm not 100% sure, but whoever refuted this was like if you rule with love, like your ideas like can get passed on after you die. If you rule with fear, your reign of terror is over once you die.
Yeah, which ties into the whole like psychic link thing that gets passed down after you die.
Yeah.
But the Doctor says a line here, something like, well, of course, like fear is temporary, love is a curse.
Yeah,
just kind of saying the same thing.
Kind of from that Machiavellian stem / I feel like I'm just attributing this to Gandhi and it's not actually him. I don't know. I'll try and look it up. Or maybe he just echoed that, not to like downplay Gandhi, but I don't remember. It might have been him.
Maybe we should downplay Gandhi. I've heard from some of my friends who are Indian, they're like saying that there's been a revisionist kind of view of Gandhi in India now, and a lot of people are coming around to think that he was actually kind of like a really bad person. Well, even though his ideals might have been like perhaps admirable, that like as a person he was actually like kind of a shit person.
Didn't he do like some politically like radical stuff? I mean, obviously more so than like the starving himself stuff, but didn't he do some like politically radical like borderline terrorist
I genuinely
like
don't
stuff?
know,
I don't know
the
either.
specifics.
Yeah,
I think he also like withheld life-saving medication from his wife or something like that.
He's an anti-vaxxer.
Because he was like anti-imperialism and he was like, the Brits have these drugs that could like save us. But no, or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know the like whole specifics of it.
Yeah, me neither. I'll try and put like maybe a single sentence like summary that doesn't do justice to this in the show notes. But yeah.
Anyway, the three generals decide that no matter what, they're gonna like work together. And they're like, that should stop the doomsday clock, right? And the Doctor's like, no, because probably it wasn't you armies that were gonna start World War III that was gonna end the world. Probably something completely unrelated. And he decides
cut to the lab. Like, oh shoot!
But the Doctor decides to put every top secret document from every government online in searchable form for free. He's like, WikiLeaks plus. And he tells them all to start Googling.
Julian Assange's wet dream.
So they're looking, and the Doctor theorizes it's probably biochemical. And he has Nardole narrow it down to like 173 labs, I think, that are like on watch lists for potentially creating something that's dangerous. But then the American general, is his name like Barrett?
Babbitt or something?
Babbitt. He decides he's just going to go surrender to the monks. He's like, I'm doing this because it's the only right choice. And the Doctor's like, you're just going to give your world away? Like, we're like right on the brink of saving. And he's like, nope, the monks can save us.
The other two, the Russian and Chinese generals also agree with this. But here's the thing, like, they actually give the Doctor some time to, like, sort this out, but they give him 2 minutes. Like, not 2 minutes on the doomsday clock. Like, they're like, you have 2 minutes to, like, stop us from doing this, Doctor. Like, better get on that.
Well, they go to the pyramid, and they stop outside, and the Doctor, this is when the Doctor's already figured out what lab it is, because he's about to tell Bill he's blind, but then he realizes, like, oh, he can find out where the lab is by turning all the security cameras off, and then watching which one the monks turn back on, because they're only watching the one lab.
Right, and the monks can, of course, just do anything. They're all-powerful, so they can just turn the one back on just via their all-powerful power.
So the Doctor goes to that lab. Douglas dies. He's the one who was hungover.
Yeah.
He gets eaten by the flesh-eating bacteria.
Yeah.
The lady is like, yeah, so the system vents into the atmosphere every 30 minutes, and the Doctor's like, what?
She's trying to stop it. She has 20 minutes left. But this was so like dumb to me. If the Doctor's like, hey guys, like we're literally on the brink of like, just give me 20 minutes. Like we can stop this. Like we have the chance. And they're like, 2 minutes, Doctor, do it. Or we're gonna.
Well, I think what's also hilarious is that this is this 15-minute time skip they don't even tell you about, because then the doctor, he figures out, he's like, oh, we can blow it up. And then he's like, how much time do I have before the vent? And the lady's like, 4 minutes. And you're like, wait, what?
He's just thinking for like 15-ish minutes.
Yeah, they go into consent. They consent. They're like, strategy is not consent. Strategy is not love. And then they kill all the generals. And then they're like, so, Bill, do you consent? And she's like, no, I have no power. And they're like, you represent the greatest power on this earth, the doctor.
I thought they were gonna go for the Russell T era thing of like, you represent the greatest power on this earth, the normal human being.
They kind of do that at the end of the story where the doctor's talking about it, but...
Yeah. But then, just as soon as they're about to blow everything up and save the day...
Yeah, because the doomsday clock starts rewinding like rapidly because the doctor's figured out this plan. He's got the bomb all set up.
But unfortunately, he can't get out of the room because he's blind.
Because there's a combination lock and he can't see the numbers on the lock.
The sonic screwdriver is unfortunately useless, and Nardole is nowhere to be found.
In the TARDIS.
Nardole is in the TARDIS. The doctor says it's not safe for him in there because he has semi-human parts, and he's just like passed out in the TARDIS, like dying. I almost thought they were going to kill Nardole here. I don't know why I thought that was going to happen, since I just don't know why I thought that, but I kind of did. But yeah, the doctor has to reveal to Bill here. Bill is like, so I can't just get out, doctor. Like, just, you know the combination, just set it and like leave. And the doctor's like, I have something to reveal to you, Bill. I've been blind since an unearthly child. No.
He's been blind since
Chasm Forge.
And Bill's like, you fool. She's like, I'm gonna save you. And he's like, no, don't. Just let me die. Literally, I'll like regenerate or something.
Yeah. But Bill won't let that happen. She goes to the monks and she consents.
And they're like, you consent out of love. Because she asked them if they can restore the doctor's sight, and they're like, yeah, we can do that. We're just all-powerful, godlike beings who can just do that without like even any medical technology. We can like literally snap our fingers and his sight comes back.
They can do anything.
Yeah.
That's their entire power, is that they can do anything.
Damn, the power creep on this show is kind of insane.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we kind of touched on this way at the beginning.
Remember when Omega just wanted to flood Amsterdam?
God. Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on this at the beginning, but like, the only reason they were defeated is because of their own stupid, like, rules. If they just had, like,
these
no
stupid rules that,
honor.
like, Moffat had to put in place because otherwise these people would be literally undefeatable. That was like the Ambassadors of Death only got defeated because of their stupid thing where they couldn't like come out of their suits or whatever.
If the monks had like no honor, they could just do whatever they want. But yeah, that's where this one ends.
Yeah, so then we get episode 3, The Lie of the Land, the one with no involvement from Moffat, ostensibly, according to the writer's credit.
Well, I mean, he set up this entire thing with him writing the first 2 episodes and creating the monks and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, this episode begins with like This Week on Nova segment. Because we find out that everything we'd seen before was actually not true. The monks have been on Earth and with, humans for all of, human history.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm glad we got that cleared up.
Yeah, I wonder what they did about those daemons. Or all those other races that tried to manipulate human history. Daemons are the only one I can ever remember, though, for some reason.
The Silence? Kind of.
Oh, yeah, the Silence. Anyway, it turns out this family is just watching this TV show, and then the army just busts down their door and arrests the mom for making
crimes,
propaganda that undermines the real truth.
Yeah, she's like screaming, the monks have only been here for a few months, as they drag her out, presumably to her death. There's like a little sort of montage thing with the doctor's voiceover over it about how the monks have been here for all of human history, but like there's some pretty funny stuff. Like you see the Grey's Anatomy diagram, but it's like a monk, like with fully robed, like you see the Mona Lisa, but it's a monk.
The monks are just standing on the moon when Neil Armstrong like walks on the moon.
Yeah, there's like a lot of historic pictures that are like well known. There's like monks creeping in the background of the picture.
And the doc's like, the monks are our friends. They'll keep us safe for the rest of human history.
Yeah, this is where we get the final scene of Blink, like monk edition, where we see like all these monk statues, and there's like a lot of cuts with like whoosh, whoosh, whoosh sound effects.
Yeah, and there's like, who can forget that the monks saved us from the Daleks? the Cybermen, and the Weeping Angels. Guess the Weeping Angels mounted a full-scale invasion in this timeline because, like, the only time they were ever on Earth was in Blink, and only, like, 10 people knew about that. Tops, maybe.
No, they were on Earth in Angels Take Manhattan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Shudders. So Bill's talking to, like, a vision of her mom.
Her mind mom.
Her mind mom. And is talking about how the doctor's going to save them all. Just as soon as she can figure out where to find the doctor.
Yeah, so she sort of kept her sanity, kept, the original timeline in mind because it's been hard for her, but she keeps thinking about it. She keeps remembering her mom, I guess, which is her link to the previous timeline. Or presumably, because again, her mom, or her idea of her mom only existed in her mind in the original timeline as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then Nodal busts the door down. And did you notice this, like, kind of weird, subtle, like, 666 in Nodal's, like, dialogue here? Didn't notice this the first time I watched this, but Nodal says he was knocked out for 6 weeks, the monks have been there for 6 months, and the boat that the doctor's on gets supplies every 6 weeks. And I'm like, hold up, what?
Wouldn't be a Steven Moffat story without some religious stuff in it. And this is no exception.
I was like, am I reading too deep into this, or is this, like, intentional? The worst part about it is that I don't even know.
No,
I don't even know.
I don't think there's such a thing as reading too deep into something. Like, it's there. Proved it. It's there.
I proved that it was there, but what does that say?
I don't know.
That the monks are the devils? That Nodal is the devil?
Well, that's just jumping to conclusions. But yeah, they know where the doctor is. He's on a boat.
He's on a boat.
Oh my god. That wasn't intentional. I'll just tell you right now. Remember, all my favorite memes are from like 10 years ago. And that's one of them, I guess.
When's
kind of a meme.
I threw it on the ground from? Was that 10 years ago? I'm not a part of your system.
I don't even know what that is.
You haven't heard that song?
No.
The guy's just singing about throwing stuff on the ground. He's like, I'm not a part of your system because I threw it on the ground.
No,
it's a Lonely Island song.
Yeah, the only songs I know from them are the I'm on a boat and I'm a boss or whatever it is.
Oh.
Or
what about
your boss in the sun.
Jack Sparrow?
No.
The one with Michael Bolton where they're like rapping about being in the club and they get Michael Bolton to do the breakdown and he just sings about Jack Sparrow because he watched the Pirates of the Caribbean marathon the day before. That's my favorite song of theirs. It's actually a really good song, too.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if I didn't mention it in our Pirates of the Caribbean episode.
Maybe you just listened to the Pirates of the Caribbean Triple Play episode, our movie trilogy podcast. Check that out. Also check out Inevitable Science, a classic sci-fi podcast for watching Star Cops. Also check out Zenith, the Blake 7 podcast. It's completed. We've watched all of Blake 7.
So Nodal and Bill decide to sneak onto the ship. But throughout this we're getting a voiceover from Bill where she's talking to her mom like, "Oh yeah, Mom, we snuck onto the ship, but they asked us for ID badges."
Random TSA check. But they make it through by the monk overlords coming to do a little inspection.
Although we find out it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Yeah, no. So here's my question at this point. We've seen sufficient scenes of the monk society, and it looks pretty damn good.
I mean, besides the police, the memory police, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. So just agree to their thought control. I mean, look, we agree to thought control every day, so just agree to the monk thought control. And everything's fine. It honestly doesn't look like they're that bad. They're that evil of a force. I would welcome the monks. Please.
Toby Whithouse does the thing where he tells you what to think about the episode in the episode where the doctor's like, it's about free will.
Yeah, they kind of do. They kind of do that.
Kind of. They straight up do that. Because Bill right now confronts the doctor and she's like, but what about free will? And the doctor's like, you had free will and you wasted it.
Yeah, so this is when they get into the doctor's room and then he basically he blames the human race for not learning from history.
Right.
But that's like the thing in this scene of like where does like historicity come from? Like obviously there's something. I mean, if you think of like Descartes' epistemology, he doubted everything other than the fact that he was doubting. So like how does like the original world have more historicity or more like epistemological like soundness than the monk world?
It's like last Thursdayism. Can't prove. There's nothing you can do to prove the world just wasn't created last Thursday with all your memories intact.
Yeah, I mean exactly. So like that's why Bill's entire, I mean, I guess shtick here is that like I don't know how to explain this. Like it's at this point in the episode, actually she does like kind of go back to Descartes' idealism to save the day at the end with her mom. But like at this point in the episode, she actually denies that idealism because she's like, no, like I knew the original world was real. Like I have my memories of it. I lived through that through my like senses and stuff. Yeah. It's just,
I don't know. The doctor's just like, yeah, I've joined the monks.
Yeah. I seriously thought he had done it. This is the 12th Doctor we're talking about.
Yeah, well, Bill grabs a gun and shoots him,
Yeah.
and he starts to regenerate, and he's like, all right, good job, guys. She's not one of them.
Yeah, these guards are totally useless before this because they have guns trained on Bill. And she just picks up a gun and shoots the doctor, and they do nothing.
Well, I mean, that was the plan.
That was
Also,
the plan,
they
but,
replaced all their guns with blanks. The doctor's like, yeah, we all replaced our bullets with blanks. And one guy's like, wait, what? And the doctor's like, well, that would have really buggered up the plan now, wouldn't it have?
Yeah, so the doctor was just bluffing all along.
He says that the monks don't fully trust him yet, but so he thought that Bill might be a test by the monks.
Right. But she wasn't. This was all partially dreamed up by Nardole.
Not at all.
But they go back to London by crashing the ship into the shore.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Bill's like, we could have just snuck back on shore, but the doctor being the doctor.
But they sneak into like back into the university because their whole plan is to get Missy on board, I guess.
Yeah, the doctor's like, we need to consult the only other person in the universe who's as smart as me. And Dole's like, oh God, has it really come to that? The doctor's like, yes.
So they go into the vault. We see the inside of the vault for the first time. Looks very spacious. Even the cell part of it.
On the inside.
Yeah. Even the cell part of it looks pretty spacious. And, Missy's in there with her piano.
The doc's like, have you ever dealt with the monks before? And she's like, yep, defeated them. The doc's like, all right, how? And she's like, well, I'm not just going to tell you.
Yeah, she requires a couple objects. I forget what they were. It was like a tank, a pony, and like a 3D printer.
And a particle accelerator.
Yeah.
She's like, I built a gun out of leaves. I think I could get through a door if I wanted to.
NRA's wet dream. Can't stop us. So the doctor kind of tries to deduce how the monks are controlling everyone's mind. Because pretty much everyone is under this spell. So he's like, is it something, is it a drug? Are they drugging people? He's like, no, it's not close at all. You're on ice. You're frozen.
He eventually
doing a hot cold game.
Yeah, he eventually pieces it together that it's memory link basically controlled by Bill because she's the original consenter.
The linchpin.
The linchpin.
God, it sounds like such a mob-esque term. The linchpin.
Speaking of mob, check out Star Cops because this week is a character who says you got to keep the mob out of space or the mafia.
Yeah, I think that's in a week or two actually.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
a week and a half.
I don't know how far behind we are with some amount of time. But yeah, that's the answer. That's it. Bill, since she originally formed the psychic link, is responsible for all of this. So if they kill Bill, they will be able to destroy the monks' influence over humanity.
The doc's like, no, there's got to be another way.
Missy's
like,
nope.
well, sorry.
There is another way. It's to break into Monk HQ and destroy the machine that they use to beam their thoughts
Well, they
out.
can't destroy it. The Doctor tries to destroy it. There's like no way to destroy it, but he suggests replacing all the monk's propaganda with his own.
Yeah. So they do that. The effect of the monk thought control thing is greater, obviously. The closer, or not obviously, but it's greater the closer you get to it. So they utilize some ancient technology, namely tapes, that are constantly just playing in their head,
Like constantly
which is
just
their own
playing Bill
propaganda.
saying like, "This is a lie. The real world does not have the monks in. They've been here for 6 months." And then one of the guy's tapes gets hit by a bullet, and he's like, "Ah, damn!" And then he threatens the Doctor, but he gets knocked out
Right.
by Nardole, who does like a Tavaran neck pinch or something like that.
Venusian Aikido? No, no. Yeah, I mean, Bill makes some reference to this actually in, I forget if it was in, yeah, it was in Extremis, I guess. She's like, Nardole, are you secretly a badass? Nardole is like, yeah, well, I have does the collar like pop thing? He's like, well, I don't claim to be anything great. But yeah, they break into the control room, and there's like an ancient, old, decrepit, even more decrepit looking than the normal monk sitting on the throne there with like a sweet bowl cut, looks like. Did you notice that? It looked
Yeah.
like, yeah. It wasn't hair. It honestly looked like he just had a ceramic bowl like attached to his head, but like, yeah.
Well, the Doctor tries to overwrite the monk's propaganda, but it zaps
Fails
him.
miserably.
And then Bills ties him up and is like, "Well, this is the only way, Doctor." And he's like, "No, what are you doing?" She's like, "I'm going to
Kill
do
Bill
it."
Volume 2.
Damn it. So she goes over, she touches the head, and she's getting fried, but then she starts to overwrite the monk's memories with memories of her mom.
Yeah, and this is where idealism, as kind of Descartes recommended it, I guess you could say, because Descartes was a whatchamacallit, he was a rationalist idealist versus like I guess back then it was like the rationalist idealists versus the realist empiricists, but like Descartes was obviously a fully idea-driven thinker. But this is where like that idealism kind of comes back and saves the day, because like Bill's mom was always just an idea. She's like the one thing from the like original world that actually like didn't exist. She was always just an idea in Bill's head, and that's the strength of that idea. Like in some ways prevails because it was just a really strong idea. Like it didn't actually need like her idea of her mom didn't actually need, because I mean for all we know Bill's mom could have been like a really bad person. For
I
all
don't
she knows
know.
as well.
I felt like it was a love saves the day.
Yeah, and that's
Kinda
kind of
thing.
what I'm getting at, which I didn't want to say it that way, but
That's what it is, though.
yeah, I mean the strength of that like idea, that idea of like love, and her idea of like her mom, which that's her love for her mom, that's what it is. It's just an idea. Like that was so strong because like I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but I like the strength of that depended on like her mom actually not being there and like having died and stuff, because like it was so powerful that it like even outlasted her own physical being, and then like
Right.
that lasted into the monk's world as well.
The Doctor says something like, "When I gave you all those pictures of your mom, I thought I was just being kind, but I was actually saving the world."
Yeah, the Doctor, I kind of don't like that line. It feels like
Yeah.
the Doctor's kind of owning this victory when I feel like it
Bill.
was Bill.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But the world is rewritten in Bill's image this time, I guess.
Well, they just stop believing the monks and they start threatening the monks, and the monks just run away. The Doctor says something like, "Oh yeah, the oppressors will do what they always do when the people realize who's really in power. They'll run away, basically."
Right. You
And then
sort of
like all the
see-
statues get blown up. We see Bill and the Doctor sitting at the base of one.
Bill's like, well, that was this is a relief because, now people are going to realize that they can just overthrow malevolent forces and dictators as long as they rise up and work together and like defeat fascism. They actually mention fascism by name in this, and fake news actually.
Yeah, that's where the picture of Donald Trump appears, is when things are being overwritten by Bill's mom. One of them is, there's a picture of Donald Trump in there. I don't know why I said Bill Trump. Anyway.
Bill Trump, God.
And then, Bill's like, that we'll learn from our mistakes, right? And the dog's like, hey, you, random person over there, what's this? And she's like, I don't know. I thought they were just filming something. And the dog's like, see, the monks just erased themselves and you guys are just going to forget, just like you always do. And Bill's like, well, why do you put up with us then? The dog's like, because out of 7 billion of you, there's always someone like you, Bill, that makes it worthwhile.
There's always someone I rope into like my sci-fi schemes whose mind doesn't get erased.
All right, when you go, okay.
Well, the Doctor's whole thing before was that he didn't want to trust humans with their own history because they never learned from history. So he's like, no, you guys don't have a right to history. That's why I'm letting the monks overwrite it, because you never actually learned from it. You never actually did anything with it. But here is kind of the payoff to that, where he's like, if there's at least one person who learns from history, it's all worth it.
Mm-hmm. Then the final scene is him with Missy, and Missy's crying. She's like, I'm just remembering all the people I killed, and I remember more and more. And I'm like, yeah, but on the death count, I'm pretty sure the Doctor's higher than you. Although, not really,
no,
because
she destroyed half
she destroyed half the known universe at one time.
Remember their names? I don't think so.
She's like, you didn't tell me about this part of this. And the Doctor's like, well, change is finally happening, Missy. Change for the better.
Cut to the preview for next time, where we see a classic villain unchanged since their inception. The Ice Warriors.
Not unchanged. We found out that they were just tiny beings inside big suits of armor in Cold War. Also, they totally were changed because they were the villains in
the Seeds of Doom and the Ice Warriors.
And then in the Peladon stories, they were like the allies.
Yeah, they were changed for sure. But now they're back to being the bad guys.
They were the only villains in the classic show who I can remember going from villain to ally.
Pretty much, yeah. But now they're back as an evil force to be destroyed.
Or maybe the evil force that should be destroyed is Victorian era ideals. I don't know.
We'll have to see.
Well, I already know. But you'll have to see.
I'll have to see, I guess. Anyway, there's kind of one more thing I want to touch on, which is going back to, again, the Cartesian theory in this episode. When they first consult with Missy, the Doctor has this line where he's like, no, we can't sacrifice even one person. Like, it's not worth it. That's not good. And Missy has this line where she says, like, hold on, I wrote it down. I wrote down exactly what she said. She said,
your version of good is not absolute. It's sentimental and vain.
Yeah, so I kind of want to just focus on the your version of good is not absolute thing, because that's another thing that's kind of stemmed, again, like a lot of modern philosophy is stemmed from Descartes' discourse on method. And that's another thing that's kind of stemmed from that, is like pure subjectivity, or like subjectivity is like the only like underlying thing for everything, or like subjective thought as being the only epistemologically sound thing like in existence. Mm-hmm. And that's from Descartes, because obviously the I think therefore I am discounts any other way you can know anything other than like your own subjective experience. And thoughts are always through subjective experience. There's no such thing as like objective like thoughts, because they're all via perspective. So that's kind of interesting there. That sort of payoff to Descartes is kind of in there.
Yeah, we'll hold on to that, because that's going to be totally disproven
by the next episode
at the end of the season. Well, I wanted to talk about how I liked these episodes way more when I watched them all back to back to back. And I think that's because when you watch them with a week spaced out, it's difficult, or it was difficult for me, because I didn't see this the first time, about how all three of these deal with what is, I guess, the nature of reality and what is true and what's not, but they all do it in very different ways.
Yeah.
The first episode deals with like, oh, we're a computer simulation, so we can't know. There's no way to know what's real or what's not. But the one thing we can know is that this isn't real, but we don't know what is real. And the third episode is like, this isn't real again, but we can know now what's real because there are people who remember what's real. And then the second episode kind of straddles those where, the Doctor basically, when he releases all the documents, he's like being fully transparent. He's removing all barriers and access to knowledge around the world, right? So there's this element of we didn't know what was real before, but we can know now, straddling the line between the two episodes. And I think the way that the story kind of shifts from the first episode where it's like, we don't know what is true, but we know that this isn't true, to the third episode where it's like, we know this isn't true, but we also know what is true.
Yeah, I know I keep
or
going...
quote true, unquote, whatever.
Yeah, no, and I know I keep going back to, like, this era of philosophy, but, like, that's what, like, Descartes and a lot of his contemporaries, that's what that era was, like, kind of dealing with, of, like, how do we know what knowledge is valid? And that's, like, kind of where the last, like, 500 years of epistemology kind of stem from, but also like classical stuff like the Greeks and shit. But like, and Descartes obviously, like, his theory was like, well, if you need to assume things to have knowledge, and that knowledge is valid, which is why he started doubting everything and being a true skeptic. But like, his contemporaries were, well, I guess you could say, like, this is the birth of, like, it's actually not the birth, but like, it's where things get interesting with, like, the debate and the relationship between subjectivity and objectivity, because a lot of Descartes' contemporaries were like, no, there is, like, such thing as an objective, like, reality and truth that we can be sure of. And Descartes and a lot of his proponents and stuff were like, no, there's not. And this episode kind of, I think, like you said, like, straddles that idea and tries to, like, reconcile some of that kind of stuff, which is interesting. I guess we'll see how that plays out for the rest of the season.
I mean, it reminds me a lot of the Amazon show, the Man in the High Castle, based on the Philip K. Dick novel, which also deals with this, like, how do we know? There's this whole multiple timeline thing going on, and a lot of the characters are like, well, how do we know what's supposed to be, right? Like, how do we know that this isn't right and whatever other timeline is wrong? Like in the TV show, there's these films that cross universes that are films from our universe, like us as the viewer, like where we won World War II or whatever, into that reality. And then people in the show start shifting between the two realities. And then it becomes a big question of, like, well, what is real? Is our reality just wrong just because the Nazis are bad people and they control everything? Or is there some other inherent reason why we're wrong and they're right? And that's kind of what's going on here. Is like, is it wrong because the monks are, like, bad people, or is it just wrong because they remember the previous timeline? Is in the first episode, is it wrong because they're in a simulation, or is it just wrong because the monks are bad people? Like,
Yeah, and I mean, how do the monks know that they're not part of a larger simulation that like another force created to try and conquer them? Mm-hmm. And then you just imagine, you can go down the rabbit hole from there. Like,
great. Simulations all the way down, or all the way up.
All the way both ways. Where does it end? But what if
just like in the middle simulation?
What if one of those simulations is, like, simulating, like, what if it just loops back around?
Oh no. No.
Yeah, this is why it's wrong, right? Like, you don't even want to think about that. You're like, no,
Stop
monks,
right there.
You can't rewrite history. Like, there's one true thing. This is why, like, this episode brings up fake news. And, like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but, like, in some ways, like, the idea of fake news is not even, like, epistemologically sound. Like, news to the observer of the news, not the observer of the event, but the person who gets the news through, like, some mediated source. There's, like, absolutely no, I think, prove me wrong if I am wrong, but I think there's no epistemological difference between, like, listening to quote-unquote fake news versus real news. Versus quote-unquote real news, I'll say, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I do agree with, like, what you were kind of saying before, is, like, each of these 3 episodes is very distinct and different, and I actually really liked that.
Yeah.
Because it kept it all interesting, because there's so many, like, other not too many other 3-parters, but there's so many other two-parters that kind of just drag, I guess. And, like, the classic show also, with its multi-part format, sometimes just dragged. But this one spiced it up, kept it interesting with new stuff every episode. Mm-hmm. And the conflict in every episode was different, so I think that kind of added to my enjoyment.
Yeah. But it was still, like, the same overarching plotline, which I liked. Like,
Yeah.
I think this worked effectively as a 3-parter.
This was almost like a little mini season inside the season.
Kind of. mini season within the season, like the simulation within the real world.
Oh God.
Maybe that's what we should be getting out of this, the mini season within the season.
So yeah, sonic screwdriver and shades were used a lot on this in this three-parter.
Yeah.
I had them being used for vision by the Doctor, sending emails, activating the reading aid, unknown purpose as always, turning off lights, opening stuff, manipulating screens, and possibly the best use ever, leaking classified documents.
Yeah, I've also got them failing to open the lock, the combination lock, and opening the vault, which is just opening a door. So
Yeah. First I was doing all the different opening ones differently, as I
just
always
condense
do.
it into opening the doors.
Yeah. And I had some quotes for this one. I don't know
I've
if
got
you
quite a
did.
few quotes.
Well, yeah.
I've got goodness is only goodness when we don't seek advantage. It's only in the deepest pit without hope, without witness, and without reward. Kindness is only kindness in Extremis. Which I bring up because, again, I think it very, very cleverly ties into the end of this season.
Huh.
Particle physicists and priests, what could scare them both? I already said that one. You don't have to be real to be the Doctor, as long as you don't give up. So when the simulation Doctor was like, I may not be the real Doctor, but I'm still a Doctor. I didn't have any from the second episode. And the third one I had Nardole saying, however bad the situation is, if it's always been that way, they'll put up with it. Missy's your version of good is an absolute. And then Bill and the Doctor's conversation, I don't want our last conversation to be this. And the Doctor, I don't want this to be our last conversation.
Yeah, a lot of those are really good. I have a lot of all those, so I'll just go through mine, but with the ones that you didn't say. So I have one from the sort of the beginning of the first episode. The Doctor says truth in the heart of heresy, and the Cardinal guy says and death in the heart of truth. I just like that one because it was like extremely edgy.
Edgelord Keon.
Yeah. I have a monk saying, we have killed you many times. Another edgy quote. I'll just say this one again because I really liked it. I have the you don't have to be real to be the Doctor. Again, questioning, like, what's the value of, like, knowing something's real? Or, like, what is even the value of, like, knowing that you're not in a simulation? Like, who cares? Like, are your thoughts not as valuable because you're in the computer? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's no. And then I have, from the Doctor in the fourth episode, another way they hang on to power is to create a myth. Mm-hmm. And with all the, like, with all the Trump stuff going on in this episode, like, that quote, I can't not think of, like, the Make America Great Again, like, with that quote. And obviously, like, that's not a new thing. Like, Make America Great Again has been said by politicians for, like, 100 years or more.
Well, Ronald Reagan was the first one who used it as, like, his campaign slogan.
Yeah, but even, like, that sentiment actually is, like, there's a speech from, I think it's Theodore Roosevelt, called The Strenuous Life, and basically that entire speech is, like, the thrust of it is, like, make America great again. Like, America's not great anymore. We need to make it great again. Well, he doesn't say those words. But even if you go back to, like, I know I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but, like, if you go back to, like, Plymouth Plantation, like, their logbooks, like, 10 years in, they're like, this place isn't as good as it used to be. Like, but, like, that in a way is, like, this mythical past, right? Like, the drive behind that saying is, like, America used to be great, and now it's not anymore. It's, like, creating this past that, like, if you go back into the past, like, that was always said, like, the past was always better than it is now. So yeah, I don't know if there was a time that, like, America was great America as a concept. I mean, obviously the Americas have been around since before Europeans came here.
Maybe it's right now. Maybe you don't need the again. Make America great. Maybe he succeeded.
But if it's just make America great, maybe it is just make America great because maybe there is no again. Like, maybe it was never great in the past. Like, maybe we just need to make it great now. Maybe it doesn't even need to be great. Maybe we should just make it suck. Kind of seems
Make America mediocre. Ma'am. Be my campaign slogan. Make America mediocre. Well, on that note, if you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctoredecadavevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on this whole three-parter. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play and Spotify at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor, like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. And next time we're going to be watching Empress of Mars. But until then, the end.